Chapter 12 of Killgloom Park by Neil Boyton, S.J. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. Chapter 12 Valecita's Pussies. "I tell you, it's a mighty funny feeling," declared Angelo Daily to his current companions, Chubby Kramer and Vernon Shee. "What's funny now?" Chubby wanted to know. "Holding a pussy cat in your arms that is not a pussy cat." "Talk United States, Angelo." "He means Chub," interposed Vernon Shee. "Holding that tiger cub of mother's." "That's just it," Angelo insisted. "When you have that soft little creature in your hands and you close your eyes, you'd think it was only a kitten. But then when you look down, it's a perfect picture of a portable tiger, and I never feel safe unless there is a whole row of iron bars between me and that Princeton-colored beast. All the time Valecita let me hold it, I was watching its claws, and if it began to start just a teeny aoom, I'd have dropped it as if it was on fire." "Well, Angelo," declared Chubby, stretching out along the park bench the three occupied at the moment, "I'd much sooner hold that tiger baby in my lap than your pal Ferocity. That stick of black dynamite is liable to go off without warning at any moment. And can't he scratch? Look here where he carved his initials in the back of my hand last week." "That must have been the time you tried to take the hunk of fish away from him," Angelo defended his pet. "Take nothing away. I've too much sense to attempt it. I'd sooner wrestle with one of your mother's big cats, Vernon, than try and take away anything from Ferocity. Here he comes now. Look at that walk on him. Doesn't he look as though he owned this amusement park and most of the island?" The big park tomcat came up leisurely and began rubbing against Angelo's ankle. Chubby got up suddenly. "Come on, you've given me an idea, Angelo." "Is that possible?" asked Angelo, jumping out of harm's way. "I've never held a real tiger cub in my arms, and I'm going to ask Valecita to let me coddle that yellow and black baby of hers. You fellows coming to see me do my tiger act?" "Nothing else to do," Angelo declared. "Come on, Vernon. Maybe the cub will be hungry, and I want to be in at Chubby's finish." The three park boys walked languidly up the walk between the Chute Lake and the Ballroom Beautiful. Before the animal world was Clivey, one of the ballyhoo elephants, swaying at his chain. The boys gave him a wide berth, for this was the spot where Bad Dennis had killed Pat, the animal man, last season. Within the animal world they passed through the menagerie and stopped at the inn nearest to the rings, where the animal acts were performed daily before the thousands in the tiered rows. Here Madame Valecita, still wearing the much-clawed leathern jacket that she wore in the steel cage when she wrestled with one of her tigers, was conversing with her husband. "Ma," Vernon broke in, "Chubby here wants to hold a tiger cub. May he?" Valecita looked around and smiled at Angelo and Chubby. "Why, certainly." The animal trainer went to the wagon cage, where two tiny tigers were sleeping alongside their mother, and unlocking the door reached in and called, "Come, honey, come running." The tigress, Venus, lifted her great head and sleepily blinked at her mistress. Both little ones got to their feet, and kitten-like waddled over to the partly opened door. Valecita took one up as she might a small cat, and snapped the lock. Very gingerly Chubby Kramer received the woolly cub and held it to his breast. "You're dead right, Angelo. It is a mighty funny feeling, holding this wild animal in your bosom. Just the same feeling I had when I had to carry a stick of dynamite once. The only difference is, if you squeeze tight to the dynamite stick, nothing will happen, but if you attempt to squeeze this young beast, it'll go off, and don't you forget it." It almost went off the next second, for Madame Valecita screamed, and the boys jumped. With great presence of mind, Chubby hastily pushed the cub into Angelo's hands and looked up. There was the lady, who wrestled a number of times daily with a tiger, standing on a stool and pointing at a tiny mouse that had inadvertently poked his nose out of a hole in the wall. "Vernon, Chubby, Angelo, drive it away," Valecita pleaded. "I can't stand mice. Vernon, son, throw something at it." Angelo whistled for Ferocity, and when the big tomcat came bounding from the far end of the menagerie, he pointed at the hole down which the frightened mouse had scampered, and encouraged, "Rats, rats, go get him, Ferocity." The park tom needed no further encouragement, and he lay low, tail whisking in approved tiger fashion, and waited to spring on the mouse if it foolishly attempted to come out again. Valecita sat down limply. Gee, Ma, Vernon exclaimed, a teeny one of those things would not hurt you. You're like the elephants. Yes, I know I'm like the elephants, son, and like the bulls I'll remain till I die. Mrs. Chubby had gingerly taken back the tiger cub from Angelo's hands. Please take this thing. I feel the same way with it as you do at the sight of mice. I've had all the thrill I want this morning. Thank you very much. Valecita, or Mrs. took back the cub and, hugging it affectionately, lifted the baby animal and gave it a kiss. That was too much for Angelo. He burst out, "Before I'd do that, ma'am, I'd beg for poison. That's what the snake charmer did with one of her long snakes when I was watching her in the side shows the other afternoon, and, ow! She held out that length of fire hose for me to do likewise. No, siree! Oh, I know my pussies, and they know me." Again Valecita kissed the cub on the mouth, and, unlocking the cage, deposited it carefully on the floor. It waddled across to lazy Venus's side and lay down to resume its interrupted snooze. "That Mrs. Valecita is a very funny lady," was Angelo's verdict as he went out of the Animal World building with Chubby Kramer. "And to think she would almost go into hysterics at the sight of a mouse no bigger than your brain, Chubby, and then play with tigers the way I would with Buddy." During the middle of the same Saturday afternoon, Angelo was so deep in his opinion of Valecita, the only lady in the world who wrestles with tigers, as her banner across the whole side of the Animal World entrance modestly proclaimed. The boy had entered the Animal World as a short cut to his jungle scene cage. He wanted to take Buddy out of the big cage. As he walked through the menagerie, he heard the brass band begin to play Victor Herbert's "The Wizard of the Nile," that was used with Valecita's wrestling act. Angelo halted his steps at the arena. Maybe 500 patrons were seated there in the tiered seats, breathlessly watching the iron exhibition cage in which Valecita, wearing the shiny black leather jacket, was wrestling with Sultan. Angelo stopped. This act always held a thrill for him. There on the floor in the middle of the cage were the lady and the tiger, about to engage in a friendly wrestling match. Angelo recognized the boss elephant man, seated 3 rows down, and silently he slipped into the vacant seat alongside him. "Hello, Bill," he whispered. Then he saw the elephant man was watching the big cage intently. "What's wrong?" "That old beast Sultan is not acting right. The little lady is taking a big chance going on with her act," whispered the elephant man. "If I were her husband, and I didn't want to be a widower just yet, I'd keep her out." Angelo saw Mr. in his green and gold frogged uniform standing beside the exit door of the great steel cage. Within, Valecita had risen to her feet and was advancing towards the center of the cage, while Sultan, like a sulky, overgrown cat, refused to come down and wrestle any more. It was very still in the arena, and Valecita's clear "Come, Sultan! Come, sir!" carried distinctly to where Angelo sat. Valecita advanced a step nearer, and Angelo leaped in fright as a hand was laid on his shoulder. He whirled around, and there was Vernon Shee. "I thought you were one of your mother's pets," exclaimed Angelo in relief. "I wish Ma was out of that cage. That Sultan had been ugly all afternoon. Pa wanted Ma to cut the wrestling act, but she won't. You know Ma, she won't." An "Ioom!" that was very natural rolled up from the steel cage. "He's not acting right, that old Sultan," declared Vernon. Angelo dragged him into the next seat. "Well, sit here and pray nothing happens. I am going to." Angelo slipped his hand into his pants pocket and withdrew his rosary. His lips began to move. That something was going wrong with the routine in the great circular exhibition cage was evident now. A group of animal men had come from the transfer cage and stood by the exit door. Mr. Shee's hand had slipped into his side pocket. "That's where Pa carries his gun, but he won't use it unless he has to," whispered Vernon excitedly. "Tigers cost too much real money." The animal men had taken up iron bars. Again the slim figure of Valecita advanced a step, and big Sultan crouched. "Look out, lady! He's preparing to spring!" someone yelled from the top tier of the arena seats. Valecita stopped and faced the sulky beast. She was about to crack her whip when the tiger crouched lower. Just the way Ferocity had at the mousehole in the morning, swiftly thought Angelo. Another roar filled the arena. "Ioom!" This time it held a distinct threat. A woman in the audience screamed. "That's not the way Sultan roars when he's making believe. said Vernon, half rising from his seat in his worry. "I wish to goodness your ma was out of that cage," Angela voiced his ardent desire of the moment. "You don't wish it any more than I do," breathed Vernon heartily. "Oh!" Vernon and Angela exclaimed at the same time. Sultan had leaped to the floor above the cage, and now he was crouching low by the side of the bars. "That's wrong! That's wrong! That's not in his routine!" Vernon Shee was almost crying. "Now he should be standing erect, and Ma goes over and throws him on his side." "If your Ma is wise as she is game, she'll get out of that cage at once," said the Elephant Man Bill. "She's not going to wrestle with her playmate again this afternoon." But Valecita continued to face the sulky tiger, and ordered him to come forward. She cracked her whip. The big beast stayed by the bars of the cage. The animal lady stepped toward the tiger, and flicked him with her whip. "Ayoom!" Valecita was swaying the whip before her, and Sultan was roaring and sulking. "That little lady better back towards the door and be quick about it," said Bill, rising. The animal men were coming around the outside of the steel cage with bars, and Angela saw Mr. Shee with his hand on the lock of the exit door. Her husband called something to Valecita, and she nodded her head. "Ma's going to cut her act," whispered Vernon, in evident relief. "That's wise." Calmly, Valecita took a step that brought her to the exact middle of the cage, and she ordered Sultan back to his perch. He stayed in his crouch. Animal attendants had opened the door of the small transfer cage, and Valecita was just about to drive the tiger in when her foot slipped, and next instant the lady was down on one knee. Sultan came out of his crouch and began a deadly advance on his trainer. Quickly, Valecita got to her feet and started to back slowly towards the gate. Sultan advanced, his long tail twitching ominously. The animal woman flicked him on the shoulder, and like lightning his great paw shot out and caught her whip hand. The whip fell to the floor. A crimson stain sprang into sight on the back of Valecita's right hand. "Oh!" cried Vernon, and started to run down the aisle. But Bill, the boss elephant man, caught Vernon's sleeve. "Stay here, sonny. You be no use, and only would distract your ma. She needs all her wits about her now." Valecita did not attempt to stoop and pick up the whip, but slowly she stepped back towards the exit door. Sultan followed her step for step. Angela saw Mr. Shee's hand come out of his pocket, and a revolver was in it. Animal men thrust bars through the sides of the cage, and Valecita stopped with her back to the door. Mr. Shee stretched his hand under his wife's arm, and fired 2 blanks in the face of the advancing Sultan. The smoke and the noise frightened the oncoming tiger, and he turned and sprang for his perch. As he did so, Valecita slipped out the door. The shots had hardly time to echo in the arena when screams from the women and children in the audience burst forth. Some of the more nervous patrons began to rise from their seats. "Sit down," boomed the voice of Bill. "It's all over. Sit down and enjoy the rest of this show." Animal men had come around the side of the steel exhibition cage and prodded the unwilling Sultan from his perch. He leaped down, stopped to growl at the whip, and then, in 2 bounds, was across the floor and diving into his transfer cage. The door was dropped, and the band began to play Sousa's "Stars and Stripes Forever." "Well," said Angelo, wiping his forehead, "I'm mighty glad the only animals my mother wrestles with is that new batch of Mrs. Ferocity's kittens. Or, maybe, Buddy when he gets too fresh." "Come on!" Vernon cried in alarm. "I want to see how much of a scratch Ma's got this time." "We'll go along," volunteered Angelo. "Come on, Chub." "I need fresh air and plenty of it," Chubby objected. "Just suppose that Sultan had decided to get sulky when he was wrestling with Valecita." "Don't." Angela made a wry face. "I got a vivid imagination." Vernon and Angelo found Valecita on the way to her dressing room. She saw the woebegone expressions on the face of her son and his chums. "It's nothing. My big pussy would not have hurt me. He had a bad tooth, and out it comes as soon as I can get the veterinary here in the morning." Vernon asked, "Let me see what he did to your hand, Ma." "Nothing, son." She hid her hand in the bosom of the leathern jacket. "Run along now and don't bother Mother. I must dress this and then go and make up with my big sulky baby. I think I'll use Grace in the wrestling act for the next performance. She's an awkward understudy, but she will have to substitute for my big baby, who has a toothache. The tooth must have been paining him more than I suspected." Angela was silent, listening to Valecita's words. He walked off with Vernon in the direction of the jungle scene. And that's the scary lady who jumped on a stool this morning when she saw a teeny 2-inch mouse come out of a hole. Believe me, Vernon, there are some things I don't understand, and your mother is one of them. Oh, Ma thinks those tigers are just pussy cats, and she treats them the way your Ma does Ferocity. Don't you believe that. My mother is more afraid of that black tomcat than your Ma is of that long, sneaky sultan." But under his breath Angelo Daily repeated his observation of the morning. "That Mrs. Valecita she is a very funny lady." End of Chapter 12. Recording by Maria Therese.